G'day everyone. This is Rangadad, not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. Um, so far today's pretty well played out to plan. Went a little bit deeper into the 103s than the target, but the target was sort of 104, so not too bad. So far it has bounced off that 20 moving average on the daily, which is a decent sign. Again, went a little bit lower, but you kind of expect that. With crypto, it likes to sweep zones. I was a little surprised it came down this far and didn't actually sweep into this wick down into the 102s, but it still seems nuts. Like we got a 107, bit over 107 yesterday, and bottomed out at 103 today. $4,000 swings on a slow day. That has been a pretty slow day. Those that have been in crypto for a while, are pretty decent swings on slow days. All right. Yeah, at the moment, basically, we're just looking for a break above these EMAs again. Pretty decent signal here off the cumulative volume. It's kind of what you want to be seeing heading into an attempted break of the 200 and the 5 and the 50 EMA at once. So this should break above. It may, what you'll probably find if it does, it'll probably do something, maybe even up into this area, and have another pullback into those moving averages before taking off. I do expect a reasonable run though. If this all plays out, I'd kind of like to see another reset of the CVD, but it doesn't necessarily have to. CVD is handy for looking at big, good areas for reversals. Okay, not necessarily bar by bar trading, but it's pretty decent at picking reversal points. So that's sort of what I'm looking to do to incorporate it, just to improve that bot that I had. Actually, to simplify that bot a bit. Anyway, that's what we're looking for. Rejection at this level. So basically, if the CVD starts breaking back down these moving averages, then that's probably not going to be looking great. You'd be back down. Oops. Yeah, you'd probably be back down retesting the 100K level again within a day or two, I would say. But at this stage, we do still have the 800 on the 15-minute, which is the 200 on the 1 hour, at 102,500, which would be a sweep of this little vector candle here. There is a decent amount of liquidity there as well. Just realized I don't think I have. Oh, yeah, I do. Have a look. There's a little bit of liquidity down here in that region. So it might do that, but there is quite a bit above. So at this stage, a breakout looks reasonably likely from where we are right now. It's just whether it's got the energy to get through it at this stage or not. putting in a higher low there is a good sign on the 15-minute as well. Yeah, that's essentially what we're looking for off this particular low. And then as we are running up, then basically we want to be looking at this trend line again. So if it tries to do it tomorrow, you're going to be looking at a break above that, probably 108. But realistically, I really want to see a daily close above this area. Like a daily close at all-time high. Did it do it there? What was that? Close 106. 608. Technically, that was a close at all-time highs for Bybit, but not by enough. Daily close above this trend line is key for the bulls. Stochastic momentum is toying with the idea of crossing back below the signal line as well. It's kind of been dancing either side of that the last few days. So decent closure above that would be handy, or any closure above that would be handy, to be honest. But yeah, at the time being, for the time being, no real reason to panic. The bulls still seem to be around. They still seem to be relatively in control. Good divergence on the RSI of the cumulative volume delta as well. And that's what this is. It's an RSI of the CVD with some moving averages on it. So yeah, good bullish divergence. See how we go. All right. Oh, the other thing too is Sol's actually having a decent run. So for those that listen regularly, you've probably heard me say that I'd like to see Sol run to get excited about Bitcoin again, and certainly that's been happening. And Green Day on Sol today, if we close above this previous high, that's a really good sign for crypto in general, I think. XRP's looking like it wants to do the same thing. So some of these bigger alts, the real darlings of this run, having them run is quite a good sign. Sol might even be breaking out, yeah, versus Bitcoin. That there should have been no. I wasn't watching this chart at the time. That was a pretty good sign that things were turning around. Hopefully this isn't just a vector recovery and then the whole thing shits the bed, but at this stage it doesn't look like that. Yeah, just go into a quick one on Melania and Trump. Oops. Excuse me. To be honest with you, this thing might run again, but it didn't really sustain itself above the 50 EMA yesterday. It looks like any sort of pumps are being sold off pretty hard at the moment. To get excited about this, you want it above the 50 EMA, and basically everything increasing along with it. I mean, they're looking okay off this base at the moment, but they're just a lot of people in there taking profits pretty quickly. Again, that's a pretty good divergence there as well, though. It's just whenever these memes are a long way below the 50 and the 200, It does take a bit of effort to get them back above that, and it's quite easy for them to get destroyed if that momentum turns around. All right. Covered sol. Pipe is another one that's kind of been really strong. That's actually pretty good looking chart there. It may pull back into 24 just to confirm this breakout, but that's a pretty good looking W pattern there. Everything's lined up for that to at least retest this wick here, 35. So it could be a good little 30% runner from this point. Sui's being left behind a little bit, but it's a pretty solid bounce off 200 EMA there too. So not bad levels here. If Sui reclaims the momentum to the upside, it's coming off a very low BBWP. Sui could actually go pretty hard. Right. So a lot of these are poised for a pretty decent run. As we said yesterday, just based on previous cycles, the being around that 840 days from low to top, the first low, main low to the main top. We're looking mid-March for a potential top on this if the cycle plays out. And at this stage, there's enough to suggest that upside is more likely. Quick look at the NASDAQ, another big day on that. That didn't really play out. I guess it did a little bit. It just all happened in one candle or two candles. Yeah, NASDAQ's looking strong. This vector candle recovery is going to be interesting because I suspect that's probably where there's going to be a pullback if we don't pull back here. Actually looking at it on the shorter time frames, there's a reasonable topping signal. Still a bit of buying pressure towards the end of the day. But yeah, across of these moving averages, when you're coming out of like above this 20 line, is a pretty good signal that you've topped on these markets. This isn't 100%, and so just be mindful of that. It's actually tricky because these markets swing really, really hard. But in general, those crosses, when you're coming off a really big spike, they can tell you what's going to happen. Like that, there's a pretty good bottoming signal as well. So once you're crossing the moving averages and you're above the 50 EMA, that's a pretty good signal that you're going up. I wouldn't necessarily use these for take profit or anything like that, but in terms of entry signals and exit signals at peaks, they're not too bad. So yeah, maybe a little bit of another little bounce, but at this stage there could be a reasonable pause, at least a pause on NASDAQ and S&P. S&P's got a very similar signal. Okay, so this one here, similarly, like as you can see, definitely a pause, but there was still a bit of momentum after it. Yeah, you got to be a little bit careful. You want to have a few things aligned, not just the CVD. But at this stage, the trend has actually started to come red again as well. So that's probably a better signal for something going on. All right, the same thing's happening on the SPY. Equal weight. Again, we're in this zone here. I do expect there to be some sellers at this point. So healthy retrace would be quite healthy. And probably back in to test this 92 level on the equal weight. Somewhere around there. It's probably going to be support. If the bulls are still in the market, that should be support. Yeah, S&P 500. A rejection off this isn't great, but again, a retest of the top of this range here on the equal weight would be quite healthy. It'd probably just bring us back into an area like 6,030-ish on the S&P 500. On the mini futures anyway. So yeah, generally I'm going to cut this one short because pretty much little spike in the VIX again suggests maybe start of a pullback. Skew yesterday was quite elevated, so decent spike in the skew. But yeah, start of a pullback seems kind of likely. This is getting into sort of overbought levels as well on the one-day futures, one-day options market. This is basically the VIX for the one-day options. So again, decent level for a bounce in this, which would suggest a likely top in markets for the time being. But yeah, at this stage, it looks more like it'll be a temporary top. DJT versus gold is still struggling a bit too. So this is going to be a line in the sand, I think. If we break below this when markets are pulling back, or even just like when they're getting overextended, then I'm going to be basically looking at that as a potential. The top is in for markets. DJI gold's looking a little bit better, but the transport sector did get a bit of bad news from the biggest transport company in the US. Basically, they never give forward guidance, and they came out and said that it doesn't look like transport's recovering, and it's probably not going to recover in 2025, which they were hoping it would in 2024. So that's probably rattled the transport sector a bit, which could just lead to a bit more of a drop in that versus industrials. Semis, good breakout. Again, little retest of the top and then a move up would be handy. Yeah, so it's KRE is still dancing around this trend line. No real read on that yet, but just be careful if this sort of breaks down and breaks those moving averages, then again, that's probably not a great sign for the economy overall. And that should, at that point, be flowing into the markets as well. Equal weight, still suggesting bullishness though on XLY, XLP. Bonds have had a little bit of a sell-off today as well, so something to keep in mind. That's, again, a little signal that market might be putting in a little bit of a peak, needs to take a rest. Everything is pretty overextended though, so not a huge surprise there. Yeah, be good to break above that trend line. This particular bond indicator's looking pretty good though. So yeah, a little bit of mixed messages, but it's just suggesting that any pullback is probably going to be bought up. What else we got? Copper's still coming down. It's probably going to test that support properly. It is coming off pretty high momentum though. May retrace a little bit further, but not too worried about that. Gold's pushing really well. Probably get a bit of a rejection around the mid band here of this particular channel. Don't think we're going to need that trend line anymore. And we're probably not going to revisit that anytime soon. So, yeah, break above this particular trend line would actually be quite bullish for gold. You would be expecting 3,000 after that, at which point probably pullbacks into this trend line again. But again, that would be a precursor to suggest that we're getting pretty close to the tops on markets. Silver's going okay. Still struggling a bit against gold, which is a little surprising. Oil pulling back. Again, target is in this 73 region. Dixie, little bounce on Dixie. Should just be a retest of this level, I think. Dixie's actually following the same pattern it did after the 2016 election in the US. Which, if it does, that would suggest that that was the top and it will slowly start pulling back. Interesting here that global liquidity seems to be rejecting this long-term trend line that we had. So if you look at this trend line here, it's bounced off it a couple of times, and yeah, rejection of that, that's actually not going to be great. Hopefully it's just a little pullback and then it breaks through on the second try. If it doesn't, like if we get more of a pullback here, you kind of want to see, it's probably not going to be great for crypto in the short term, and you really want to see that continuing back up to the upside. So that's just a little bit of a red flag in there, but hopefully that's just telling us that, yeah, we're going to have a couple of days pullback. As you can see, this thing is pretty jagged at different stages, but it's just this trend line's been pretty critical. Mag 7's looking okay. Percentage of stocks above the 50-day moving average is quite high as well. We got one of the biggest breadth thrusts we've had in history, actually. It was like something like 6 days in a row where more than 68% of stocks were advancing. Yeah, whatever that was, it's actually the biggest in history, the longest run in history. So typically when you're breaking records like that, you're probably due for a bit of a pullback, but yeah. We are coming up into a critical level here too, so a bit of rest on this. Most of these things, there's key targets pretty close below. So again, it's suggesting pullbacks are probably going to be relatively short. just be careful because there's a lot of volatility out there. Not going to worry about those big stocks. Total crypto market cap looking okay. A little bit of a rejection there off that previous close, but again, it's looking okay. Probably momentum's actually more to the upside than it is on Bitcoin itself. People are still longing ETH versus BTC. Honestly, I think those guys are nuts. Either that or they know something we don't. BTC longs is still ticking up a little bit on this pullback. Shorts have had a little uptick, but there's not many people interested in shorting it at the moment. ETH versus BTC is still heading down. Like looking at that chart, who's building massive long positions on this at the moment? It's just, just dying. Ethereum, it's rejected from that point of control again. The only hope for this is it just gets a run based off Bitcoin going on a run, breaking all-time highs. I'm just not seeing it. The money's flying into Sol and Sui and XRP this run. Ethereum's not looking great. But you would expect it to go up if the rest of the market's going up still. All right. Yeah, so we covered that. I haven't actually looked at the volume leaders either. There's a caveat on this analysis, but a little bit of selling coming through here actually. But CBD is still ticking up, even on this red candle here. For the time being, CBD is still green. So it's obviously getting a bit of sell pressure off people shorting at the or selling at the test of the 200 and the 50 on the 15-minute. But if CBD is going up, then I'd still expect it to break through reasonably soon. All right, this I need a bit of a refresh on. Decent liquidity above or liquidation levels above. A few more buyers coming into the charts down here than what there has been. But a lot of sellers up here. There's a lot of short liquidity to take. It seems ridiculous, actually, if we go down from here. Could happen. Bitcoin can be a real pain in the ass sometimes and do that, but upside still seems likely. Actually got a bottoming signal at the friggin' top here. It's weird. On spot funding. That's bizarre. Yeah, not a super strong bottoming signal here. There was a decent bottoming signal here on the perps funding. Yeah, for the time being, nothing really changed my mind there. Just going to have a look at sentiment. Trader. Up. Ooh. Okay. So smart money's been selling off this pump. So yeah, a pullback, and dumb money's been buying it. A pullback would make a lot of sense, both based on just the TA and the sentiment. So what does that mean for Bitcoin? Makes me a little bit nervous for Bitcoin, but at this stage, I think the pullback's going to be brief enough on the stock market that shouldn't have a major effect on Bitcoin, but got to probably play the odds there that we need to see confirmation above that 200 EMA on the 15-minute. I think good confirmation above that and a move away from it is going to be good for Bitcoin. Until that happens, just be careful, because yeah, there's that general stocks are sort of looming for a bit of a breakdown. Just check. XLF, so financials have actually had a bit of a day. Interesting sweep there. And that's probably suggesting someone wanted to get out or get into a position really quite quickly. It's bounced after that, but no real read on that yet. It's a little concerning because it has come after a decent run up. Generally, if someone's sweeping, suggesting there's a decent move incoming. Still haven't got anything bigger than this one we had on IBIT yesterday. So some pretty big transactions occurring at the top here, and we have pulled back after both of these. Now, it's still getting bought up, like 5th largest transaction on IBIT. It still got bought up the following day. It's just, basically, this is one to to look at after or towards the close. That seems to be when they do a lot of their big trades. Be a little bit concerned that there's been enough selling in here that that we do go further down. Again, bit of mixed messages. Higher time frames still look quite bullish for Bitcoin, but there are some potential sell pressures coming in. So yeah, maybe I think based on Sol's move and Hype's move, if we can break the 200 EMA and the 50 EMA, which this is now looking like it's a deeper sort of pullback, potentially, then yeah, happy days. It should go on a pretty good run. If not, and where's the breakdown on this? I reckon closure. Look, the time being, you'd have to think that 102,500 would be a buying opportunity. But again, it's it's risky because the trend is down. We're below the 200, below the 50. You'd have to see some pretty decent buying pressure come through at that. The 1 hour 200 EMA, which it should. It has provided pretty decent support on this run so far. The issue is how many times do we test it before we break it? But yeah, given Sol and XRP are running, still going to lean bullish. I'm still going to suggest, think BTC should break this to the upside today. It's just whether it, like Bitcoin loves to do a quick pullback before pumping. So, pull back into this region here quickly and then a move away. That is definitely a possibility with Bitcoin, and which would actually potentially put in a bullish another drive of bullish divergence on the CBD. So it looks like we're getting close to this finding a bottom, but at the moment, it's just whether or not the bulls can keep buying up the dips or whether they get exhausted. So a few, I'd call them orange flags. I wouldn't call them red flags, but I'm expecting pullback in stocks over sometime in the next couple of days. There's like 2 days left on US market, so probably the next 2 days. But Bitcoin should, if we can confirm above those levels, should actually go up. If we break down below, this is the line in the sand for me. I think like a proper break below the 200 on the 1 hour, so 102,500 would actually suggest that we're going to go lower, and any sort of bounces are probably going to be met with resistance again probably off the 50 EMA. The other thing is the volatility is contracting here quite a bit, so it's hard to read until we get a bit of action. We just want to see breaking above these levels as volatility is increasing. All right, going to let it there. Pull back on stocks. Bitcoin's a little bit undecided, but upside still seems a bit more likely at this stage. Catch us later.